Hey, I'm Nathan Johnson. We're here on Film.Music.Media All Access, talking with Kaya, and we're going to be talking about music and movies and knives and all manner of slicey dicey things.
Well, Nathan, thank you so much for sitting down this evening and talking. It's so great.
Nice to see you again.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a while. And thanks for, if people were realizing, you don't have a giant nerdy CD collection behind you. I'm sure you do, but that's mine.
This is Kaya's. I can't take credit for it. I'm going to do all my interviews in front of your CD collection.
So thanks for coming over.
Thank you for
having me. So we can sit
me.
down tonight. Yeah. So to start off, I'd love to kind of just go back to kind of your origin story and kind of talk about growing up. I know you had a pretty interesting childhood, being born on the East Coast, moving to Colorado, and then living in London.
Yeah.
And so talk about, where did you pick up this music thing? When did it happen in your lifetime?
It happened pretty young. I mean, I was like really young, actually. Like, so Rian and I are cousins.
Right.
Rian, obviously the director of Knives Out, and we grew up making music and movies together, like since we were actually like pretty little kids. Like,
yeah.
We, when we were like very young, we had a band called Weirder Than Al, where we took Weird Al songs and rewrote the lyrics to them.
Wait, what was it called?
Weirder Than Al.
Weirder Than Al.
It was. But I mean, like I kind of grew up in garage bands, and all through high school, making music, making movies.
Yeah.
And then I was living in England and had launched this. It was kind of this touring band project called the Cinematic Underground, and we had just made like a concept narrative record with like a graphic novella, and it was very much a story that we were performing as a story, and that was right around the time that Ryan was shooting Brick, so he asked if I would do the music for it. And I mean, at that point, like he was living in LA cutting brick in his bedroom apartment on his Mac. And I was living in my apartment on the south coast of England, and I'm pretty sure it was like the first movie that had ever been scored using iChat. Like, this was back when when the cameras weren't built into your computer. Like, I had an old power book and like the little camera that you magnetized onto it. And that was how we did the spotting session. Like, wow. Ryan pointed his camera at his monitor, and we watched the movie together and talked through the whole thing. And then, so I kind of did the score for Brick in my apartment with a laptop and one single microphone, and wine glasses instead of a string section, and mallets on filing cabinets instead of timpanis, and that was like the origin.
How did he set up kind of go on the directing path and you on the music path? Because we're both musicians and both kind of both visual and both musical.
Yeah,
right?
totally. So he sort of it was kind of like a leaning thing, but I mean, I loved making movies and making music, and kind of weirdly, I actually didn't think about combining them until Brick. It wasn't like I was like, I want to be a film composer. It was like, honestly, it was more like, let's make stuff.
Yeah. Were you aware of like film music as a thing back
then? Like I was aware of like John Williams and Morricone and like some of the greats, but I wasn't like a film music geek, like I was like kind of, I think maybe
just aware of it,
as much as any kid who loves Star Wars is aware of film music, which is kind of a lot in that regard, but so he had kind of leaned towards directing really early on, but we still write songs when we get together, and
that's awesome. So I mean, it seems like you guys were very close growing up. When it turned into now kind of two professional careers for both of you, how has did the relationship change at all? When it became things like, okay, now these movies are getting released and now we're doing bigger films, like, did the relationship change, or does it still feel like you guys are just two kids working together?
It kind of, in a way, but then it's there's also this, this sense of like, wow, we get to do this for our job. I mean, I remember there was like a kind of a moment that stands out to me. We were, when we finished Brick, we got into Sundance, and like when we were growing up, we would kind of spend, like our summer vacations together, the whole family, and we have a huge family, like lots of cousins.
Yeah.
And so, so we would spend, a week making a movie while everyone was together, and then we would all gather in my grandparents' basement and show the aunts and uncles, and then everyone would gather in and watch the movie. And so when we finished Brick, we were at Sundance in the Eccles Theater for the premiere, and like basically the whole family came. And so I remember Ryan and I were sitting there, and we like turned around, and like the family was behind us, and then a little bit further around is 500 strangers. And that was like the moment where it was like, it's like kind of similar in a way, but also just like what is even happening? Yeah.
So when you first were doing Brick, I mean, clearly you felt very comfortable, I'm sure, to be vulnerable with each other and stuff like that. So you weren't under like, I guess, I'm sure it's pressure, but like, it wasn't like, okay, you're hired by a studio and you have to make these deadlines and everything. So what were the first learning moments you had on Brick?
Yeah. I mean, it was like really going through the process with Ryan, and a lot of bouncing stuff back and forth, a lot of talking about references, and then kind of just developing my process, which, is very much early on. I'm writing thematic ideas and motifs, and writing a lot, generating a lot of material, and sending it to Ryan, and getting his feedback on stuff. And I feel like Ryan's actually a really great collaborator, and what I've come to understand that means is that like a great collaborator is someone who really knows what they want in terms of the bigger parameters. Right. It's almost like we kind of he always has ideas when we're starting, and we kind of like mark out the boundaries of the playground. But then he wants me to kind of surprise him, right? And it's like, okay, this is definitely where we are for this, and it's like we're not over here, and he knows we don't want to be over there, we don't want to be over here, this is what it's going to be. But then within that, there's just like this playground to explore. And he's always like surprised me, like I want you to go for it.
So he just kind of gives you your space and lets you do stuff?
I mean, it's still very, it's really collaborative. He's really involved, but it's, I don't know. It's not like he doesn't know what he wants, and he's like, I don't know, show me something and I'll know when I hear it. But it's also not like he's like ultra micromanaging. And I think with all, like, I mean, it's kind of like a whole movie making family. So the way he collaborates with Steve, his DP, who he always works with, and the actors who he always works with, it's, there is that, I think there's a real respect there, and it feels so nice working with him, because I think he knows what he wants, but he also is excited to have these people bring something that might surprise him.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. And that early in your career, was it, were you kind of like aware, were you just like kind of, what was your identity at the time as what was your voice as a composer? Were you trying to figure out, okay, what kind of composer am I going to be? Or were you just like, this is what the movie needs, and I need to figure it out?
Just the latter. Like and I think, I mean, I don't know. Honestly, I think like if you go down that path of like, what is my voice? How do people think about me? I don't know that that's a very helpful path for me. It's almost like, oh, you could go down a black hole that way. Yeah. But I think especially with film music, like my the way that I think about it is like, I'm not here to like make my music. All I'm here to do is serve the director's vision of the movie, and I kind of like have other outlets for like my music or my whatever, but this is about me. How can I like get inside the director's head and help them achieve whatever it is they're imagining.
Yeah. So Alan Silvestri told me a really cool story when he was working on Chips, like the first or second episode or something. He said one of the executives or somebody pulled him aside and he says, like, "What the fuck are you doing? This is not the Alan Silvestri show." And Alan was like, "That's when I knew, like, I have to put everything aside." And just like, it was a learning moment for him, you know, like early in his career, like, nope, this is not about me. It's not about my music.
Right. Know? Yeah. And that's like, that's in a way, it's a real freeing thing, you know, because I mean, I was mentioning boundaries earlier, but I really believe that, like, the way that good art could happen is by giving it boundaries, and so it's you know, without the painting, without the canvas, that there's, what are you going to do? Like, so but saying, at least just saying, here's what this is going to be.
Yeah, there's the border.
There's the border, and then you get to push against the border. Yeah, so for a movie, it's really nice because you don't have to think about what's my voice, what's my thing. All you got to think about is, like, how can I help in whatever way possible,
right,
make this connect in a way that the director is excited about.
And has your process with Rian changed over the course of the films, or have you guys kind of, like, I mean, of course you have a shorthand, but I mean, is it just like, all right, this is new movie, new project, let's go, or is it kind of like, let's try something different this time?
It's really different each time, actually, and I think you know, possibly that's because Rian is so adept at moving between genres, but it feels like every movie we do together, we're not retreading ground. I mean,
so different.
And like with,
like, Brothers Bloom is so underrated, I think, in my opinion. It's such a great film, and then compared to Brick, or compared to what, you know, Knives Out now, or Looper, or something like that. I mean, there's just it's just so different.
Yeah. Well, and each score is like kind of a chance for me to put on a different hat, or, you know, swim in a whole different pool. Like, I remember for Looper, like, Rian, you know, as we're setting the parameters at the beginning of Looper, he's like, what if the whole score is one chord? Like, or what if the whole score is, like, one key? And we're, you know, and I'm like, okay, how do we approach that? And we didn't ultimately end up doing that, but the other stuff we were talking about is, like, let's make this an atmospheric, almost sound designy score. Yeah. And really, there's, like, kind of one motif in Looper that moves through the whole movie, but that was so different from the Brothers Bloom, and really different from Brick. Brick was almost like Peter and the Wolf style, where every character has a theme and a voice. Yeah. And so I remember on Looper, you know, I moved down to New Orleans for, like, a month while they were shooting.
Oh wow.
And I like took a field recorder and basically, like, gathered sounds from the city, and then kind of created, like, a sample library, but of industrial sound effects.
Oh wow.
And then tuned those so that they were, like, playable textural instruments.
Yeah.
Which I was, like, you know, super excited. Ryan and I were both really excited about going down this road, but also it just felt like exercising a totally different muscle. Yeah, so I think each movie, in a way, it's like, okay, here's what we're doing. Let's figure out how we're gonna pull it off.
So compare it to working with, I guess, a different director, like a director that you're not related to and didn't grow up with. Because typically, I mean, of course, with Ryan, I'm sure he brings you on board super early, like, hey, I'm doing this and everything, and you have those discussions. But, you know, typically composers come in usually the last second, or the ones that have to save everything after all the budget's been burned out, and it's just like, it's all on you.
Yeah.
Comparing those two different experiences, how does your, I guess, approach change?
Yeah, it's I mean, that's a great question. I feel like I've been fortunate enough to work with most of the directors I've worked with. Actually, I've started early.
Oh, that's great.
On the process, but obviously that comes, like, with a relationship. So some, you know, some it's like, oh, this is kind of down to the wire, and I think it's I mean, for me, I don't know that I approach it too differently, other than knowing I don't have as much time to follow rabbit holes, you know, and it's like we maybe just need to escalate that parameter discussion. We kind of need to find what that is quicker, but still, I think it's the same thing of like generating themes and motifs and playing off the director. I don't know that I approach it that differently. I'm still trying to find what is making them spark. And, you know, I mean, you can score a scene 1,000 different ways.
Right.
A cohesive movie has a perspective of somebody driving it, and so it's obviously bringing whatever we get to do, but really it's like how does this work in a way that is sparking the director.
Right. So I love to kind of ask composers, where does the first note come from? And so what do you usually latch onto? It seems like you like to get in the director's head. Is that kind of your first like inclination to do, or do you like to wait for a first cut, or do you like to read the script first? What's kind of what do you gravitate towards to kind of pull that first idea?
Yeah, well, so my process is always as early as possible. Like I always want to read the script, and I want to read the script before I see the movie, because like as a composer, we sort of have that luxury of following the director's process. And so if I'm able to read the script and then see a rough cut of the movie, it in a way I can learn so much about that, because I'm learning what movie they made from the script.
So you're just trying to plant yourself in there.
Totally. And at that point I'm not thinking about music. It's really like, what is this story? Am I into this story? Is this something that I feel excited about? If it is, you know, then you're meeting the director. Are we gelling? And then at that point, then it's, I don't know that I like try to bring music to it before I've like immersed myself in the world and immerse myself in, to whatever extent I can, getting to begin to know the director.
Yeah, I just interviewed Michael Giacchino, and he it's funny because his process is complete opposite. He says he tries not to read the script, because he also comes from he grew up making films and everything. He says when he reads a script, he immediately starts making the movie in his head, and then it's completely different than what he's eventually shown with that first cut.
Sure.
Is it hard to not go, this is how I would do coverage on this scene, or this is the kind of, how do you turn that part of your brain off?
No, because I'm like reading it as a fan.
Okay.
Or ideally, right? If it's something that you're liking,
right?
But that's what I'm looking for. When I'm reading something, I'm looking for, but I love reading scripts. I mean, I remember like early days before Rian had made anything, and he just had like all these scripts, and I would love getting to read those sometimes before the movie would come out. So I kind of like really like scripts as an art form. So in that phase, I'm just reading it. I mean, it's like a bit like Kid on Christmas Morning, especially when you're reading a great script, because it's like the opportunity to get involved in this. I mean, I'm just like a fan of movies, right? So it's like an opportunity to see early on in this process, and then if things go well, to get to like walk that journey to completion. So I think honestly I approach it like kind of as a fan.
I always love going back and like when I discovered Internet Movie Script Database. Like that. I mean, that's as a someone who comes from a filmmaking like mine, to go back and read scripts of your favorite movies. When I started, I was like, I have to read a Coen Brothers script. Like, there's no way that all of that was on the page. It's like every beat is on the page. Or like if you go read Airplane, like how do those jokes? They're all on the page. It's just like, it's a great way to study like that.
I remember reading The Big Lebowski before I saw the movie, like before the movie came out, and it just felt like, whoa, I got a gift that that nobody has, and so that's like, it's a fun. I mean, it's a really fun process to get to be a part of.
Yeah, it's so. And even when I moved out here, I remember, even though I work in the industry, I'm on those like the focus group screenings, like the invites, and I always go in there and just like I lie, I'm like, oh, I work at Best Buy or something, because I just want to see like the process and and just like you see like, oh my god, and then I compare it to when I see the finished product and you see what the temp was doing, you see the visual effects finish, and it's just like that whole process is so fascinating.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that's really helpful about that as well is you doing that teaches you about malleability. You know, and there's like that classic thing of saying like you make the movie when you write the script, and then you make the movie when you shoot it, and then you make the movie again when you edit it. And that, I think that's just like, as a composer, that's a helpful thing to have sort of in your bedrock is like this is like an evolving thing, and I need to be evolving, and it's all moving, and ideally and ultimately everybody is trying to make the greatest thing, and to do that you know you got to be flexible. You got to be flexible on set when you see something magical happening, and you know like that it's like, oh wow, I'm gonna follow that.
Right.
The actor is bringing something that you know, because it's like, even if it's all on the page, then they're like bringing that magical thing that they do, and it's like I gotta follow that. So I think like we're less interested in making movies as like perfect robotic assemblies of the thing I imagined. Like to me, the magic of making things is, once you get a perfect idea out of your perfect head zone and put it into the real world with imperfection and beauty because of that imperfection, that I think is where the magical spark of art, of all the art that we love, I think there's an element of the perfect idea coming into contact with the material or with the people, and some alchemic thing.
Just everything, because it never is exactly what it was in your head. It's always something takes some wild journey, and it comes and you go, oh my god, and then completely. But the genesis is there, but you have it. I don't know. It's hard to explain, I guess.
Yeah. But I mean, like, that's what I love about it. Like, that's what's magic about getting to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So we were talking just about like your music career, but you also have a completely different side of art that you explore, and you're directing videos, and you're doing kind of other different types of art. And I mean, your music videos are completely fascinating and amazing, and just like
thank you.
And so talk about that. How did you start branching into those? Was that happening before you started becoming a composer?
Yeah. I mean, I like kind of in high school as well. Like I really loved making short films and music videos, and kind of doing that for myself and friends. So my brother Mark runs like a graphic design firm called The Made Shop, and we do a lot of stuff together. We've like made a lot of album covers for bands, and we were working with a band called Sun Lux. Ryan Lott is the guy who leads it, and he's been like a longtime friend and collaborator, and he's worked with me on film scores, and great friend and great collaborator. But so anyway, my brother and I had done a lot of their artwork for their albums, and they were about to release a new record, and approached us about kind of basically being in charge of the whole visual aesthetic, from the album artwork to the music videos. And I had been like really feeling the itch to direct and because I hadn't done it in a minute. And so I jumped at that, and we started. I mean, it was like, I feel like how all new projects start is like, can you do this for no money? And,
exactly.
And like, and the way you succeed is say yes, and then you figure out how. So there's this the video that I did was called Change Is Everything, and it's basically like a rotoscoped stop motion animation using pins and rubberized thread.
Wow, yeah, I remember that.
And so my wife Katie and I like basically like did all the animation, and my brother Mark kind of like helped with some of like the architectural like line vector stuff, and I basically like cut together the video and then rigged up in my composing studio, rigged up like a camera and a projector to project this like rough video that I shot, and then we just traced the lines for like 2 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, like my wife and I just sitting there for like, you know, all day long in a room, like moving pins and thread. She was like, "We're never doing this again."
No, you have some great stop motion. What was the music video you did with the I forgot the name, but it was like a series of his photographs, and it was
Lucius.
Yes.
Yeah, so
that
Jess
was
and
crazy.
Holly, yeah, so that was weirdly, I mean, I guess it maybe technically it would be considered go motion in a weird way, but
True.
So what I did with that was basically like, how do you do a stop motion video using real people? And so I had them learn the song is called Gone Insane, and I had them learn the song at like 24 times slowed down.
Wow.
And then we used an intervalometer on a camera, which is basically, it's just like a device that that triggers the camera to fire at a set amount of time.
Right.
So after a bunch of math, we like basically had them lip syncing the song really, really slow, and then took hundreds of still pictures in time.
Yeah.
And this sounds like super arduous, but what it allowed us to do was, because we were using still photos, I worked with an amazing prosthetics artist.
Yeah, I mean, the effects on that were amazing.
So Jim Ojala basically like created these facial dysmorphia things so that we could like stretch their faces like silly putty. But what we would do is they would be lip syncing, and then we would like cut and send them to the makeup chair for like 3 hours, and then they'd come back, we'd like reline them up.
Oh my goodness.
And then they'd have this prosthetic thing on their face, and then you just start again pulling it out.
Wow.
So yeah, it was like, and they were so awesome. Like no band wants to sit for like a week to make a music video, and they were just so into it. And
that's amazing.
It was really
I did something
really
similar
fun.
in film school, except I literally just like that was right when DSLRs were just like kind of taking off, and I had like a Canon Rebel, and I just like and I did a short, and it was literally like not I just literally held the shutter down, went so it was just kind of like that.
Totally.
So no mathematics involved. So didn't turn out as well. It was a comedy one, so it was fine.
Nice.
But I still go back and I watch it, and it cracks me up.
I love stop motion.
I know, and then people would say like, "Oh, you just maybe filmed it and just selected your frames." Like, no, like each frame was a still photo. It was never film, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, you're filming it just really, really slowly.
Exactly.
So it's like, I forget the actual math, but I think we're taking a photo every second. So 24 seconds would equal 1 second.
One frame,
so it was just like crazy slow. But they learned the song that way, and
that's amazing. Because the lip syncs it's in sync. It's like in sync with the music.
Yeah, I mean, it was like, it wasn't perfect. Like I had to definitely go in and like kind of like pull out frames and make sure that it was like,
and hitting those things.
But
and the end result is amazing.
Thank you.
Jumping back to filmmaking, would you ever consider directing a feature? Like, would you ever do that?
I mean, so a couple of the other music videos, I got to work with Tatiana Maslany, who's just a phenomenal actor, and I have to say, the magic of working with her was like a drug. Like it was, and I've being on set with Rian and seeing what actors do. I mean, that it's so amazing. But there was an element of like doing that with my own thing, where I saw kind of firsthand the magic that that these actors are bringing to the role, and and it is it's ultra compelling, and I love that type of collaboration.
Yeah. So when Ryan was hired for Star Wars, did he did he be like, dude, like what was that call like?
Yeah, he came over, told me what happened, and it was just like, I mean, Ryan and I remember we when VHS tapes came out, like what years out, like we got the Star Wars VHS tape when we were little kids.
Yeah.
And we just like watch it and then rewind it. I mean, this was like a huge part of us growing up, and John Williams' music is like it's like the soundtrack of our childhood. Yes. I mean, kind of literally, like when we were making movies as kids, one of the only soundtrack CDs we had was the Hook CD. Oh, yeah. And so all of our childhood movies were scored with the Hook CD. Yeah, so it was super sweet. After the Last Jedi sessions finished, he came over and he was like, I got John Williams to sign 2 things. I got him to sign a poster for me, and then I got this for you. And I opened it up, and he had tracked down like a Hook vinyl.
Oh my God.
And John Williams had inscribed it, and I was just like, oh, that's amazing. That's
amazing.
Yeah. But it was just, I mean, magical to be, I mean, I got to be at the scoring sessions and
see that
when they, when the orchestra hits the opening fanfare, I mean, I don't know, it's like hard to talk about how awesome it is.
To be in the room and feel the air and feel like that.
Totally.
Feel
and
the music.
Watch John Williams do his thing. I mean, he's, just the master.
Yeah. In some alternate universe where John Williams doesn't exist and Ryan had that movie, would you be up to tackle a Star Wars movie?
I am up for tackling whatever Ryan invites me to tackle. Awesome. I said recently, like, people who I love and trust, they can convince me to do anything.
Yeah. So let's talk about Knives Out, which is I mean, I haven't seen the film yet, but it looks amazing. And talk about the conversation you had tackling this. I mean, people are going to look at it and think of Clue and kind of that kind of genre of the murder mystery and everything, maybe even like Pink Panther or something. But like, talk about what did you guys want to do with this movie? How did you find the right tone for it as well?
Yeah. Well, we knew early on, we were talking about this wanting to be like kind of a classic orchestral score. And we were like kind of looking at scores from like the late 50s, early 60s, like Lawrence of Arabia and some of Bernard Herrmann's stuff. And this idea of setting the parameters, like it's like we want to do an orchestral thing, but have it. Ryan kept saying like sharp like a knife. Like I want it to cut. I want it to be precise. I want it to dance. And so it was really exciting to think like, let's do a big orchestral score, but kind of in the way that those uber melodic super motif movies from the 50s and 60s would do it. And but everything kind of began to flow from that sort of first principle, like the size of the orchestra, the players we picked, the style that I was writing in, even the room we recorded in. We excuse me, we recorded in Abbey Road in Studio One, which is like a beautiful big room, but it doesn't have a crazy long reverb tail. Like, so it's actually like precise as well.
You have that crisp end.
Yeah. So and the movie is like, the dialogue is killer, but and it's like a huge ensemble cast. So it's like there's a lot going on.
How do you navigate that? How do you navigate like an ensemble cast like that without stepping on the performances?
Totally, that's the thing. You have to. I mean, you can't write the music ahead of time, right? Like it's got to be scored exactly to the picture, and almost in a way like like the music is like a dancing partner with the actor, and you can't step on their toes. You want them to be shining. You don't want to be doing a twirl while they're doing a twirl. Like this is about moving in between the spaces. So kind of my approach to this was there's tempo changes all over the place. I'm like bobbing and weaving. And it's but again, we didn't want it to be just like drones or background atmospheric. So it's like kind of it is like dancing around the what is an amazing performance by the cast.
And talk about, I guess, like finding the tone too, because it's supposed to be murder mystery, but I think it has like a bit of a comedic side to it as well. Was it difficult not to like lean too much in either direction?
I mean, I don't know that I was thinking about that at the time. I tend to find that when it comes to that, I'm thinking less like funny, sad, like less like these emotional terms, and just kind of from a gut level responding to the characters. And I mean, I got to go down while they were shooting, so I was on set in this amazing Gothic mansion, like in the fall in New England, and kind of watching them work during the day and then going home and writing at the end of the day.
Wow.
So there was like a really nice process of kind of steeping in that. And I mean, I wrote like I generated so much material on the early side, just kind of like exploring melodies myself, even before I was showing it to Ryan. But then like one night after production, he like on set, he's like, hey, why don't you come over tonight and let's listen to some stuff. And I remember I brought him 2 things, and I was like, I felt like, I think this is it.
Yeah.
And just like, on a laptop, put headphones on, and he like kind of within a few seconds, like this smile kind of came onto his face, and he just like held up his hand and high-fived me, and I was like, yes, good. Like, I feel like we're on a track here. We're like we're in the right zone.
Yeah. Is it still, I guess, do you still get nervous presenting
music?
Of
Course.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because it's, like you're trying to land something and you don't know. But that's the thing, like you don't know what it is until you do it.
Right.
And that, I mean, I guess like kind of what we were talking about before about getting that perfect idea out of your head. And then it only becomes something once you're like, all right, we got to show this to you. It's maybe not perfect, but but I think there's like with Ryan, there's a real iterative workflow. So
for sure.
Yeah.
So if you guys hit a crossroads and there comes a time, maybe disagreement happens, is there, I mean, even brothers sometimes fight,
Sure.
Do you guys have a disagreement, or you're mostly on the same page?
But I mean, it's like,
are you comfortable voicing more with him?
For sure. But I think like the thing is, ultimately, he's gonna be right most of the time because it's his thing, right? You know what I mean? So like, I'll definitely push for it, but ultimately it's like we know who's gonna make the final call,
right?
So maybe I can convince him.
Yeah. It's about convincing.
but
Just trying to get him to sway on you. It's like presenting a case. It's like, all right, hear me out.
Right, totally.
Kind of going back to like kind of the general process. So what would be, I guess, the most rewarding aspect of the whole scoring process? Like, what's your favorite part? What's something that really just like makes you feel fulfilled, just as a human?
Yeah, I really like writing.
So the writing process. Yeah.
I love that element because there's something in that moment where you're kind of moving past everything and you're just getting to place yourself theoretically or imaginarily in the room with these actors and just respond to the magic that they're creating and to the emotion that's happening. And I think that ends up being, I mean, in film composing, there's a lot of like up here activity. Like there's a lot to manage.
Yeah.
There's a lot of organization, but the writing process is like a chance to really at the starting point, drop it into that gut level. Like, it's like the thing that music is really good at.
It's that point of creation. So it's just you, and just you. It's just you, I guess, right?
And getting to, but it's like this weird thing where it's just you, but it's not just you, because it's like all in relation to what's happening from the actors, what's happening from
everything influencing you,
everything. And so it's like, but it's a weird, it's a kind of special weird collaboration, because it's like a collaboration with, you're by yourself in a room, but you're getting to collaborate with a thing that has involved months and hundreds of people, bringing it to this point.
I mean, the whole process is crazy. What would be the most challenging part of the process? Is there a part of the whole job that you find like, oh, something maybe mechanical or something that's like, oh, I hate this part or something like this? Or is there, or like, oh, now we have to do this?
Yeah.
Or maybe something that you don't like gravitate towards
I
too
mean,
as much.
I like tend to do a lot of like precision oversight, and that is like the less fun part of the job. But yeah, there's a lot of those things, but it's what they're like little detailed things, but overall the the writing, the recording,
absolutely.
The mixing, I mean, those are the parts that I love. File management is not my favorite thing.
Being in this business and being in the industry, do you find that as a composer, I mean, you have to be knowledgeable in the business. You have to be knowledgeable of like all the contracts and deals and studios and blah blah blah. Does that ever interfere with just like the creative part of it? Is it like, I wish I could just turn that off, I can just focus and create?
It can. It's hard for me to like jump into those logistical details while I'm in the process of scoring. So sometimes it's unavoidable that like those things are dovetailing together. Ideally, I mean, I kind of have a hard time focusing on multiple things at the same time.
I'm the same way. I can't. I'm bad at multitasking.
Totally. So ideally, I like to keep those things separate, but it doesn't always work out that way.
I really love just like kind of your choices that you make, and it seems like whether you're working with Rian or other filmmakers. I mean, other films like was it Kill the Messenger?
Yeah.
It was a great score that you did, and
thank you.
But you pick very specific films. What is, I guess, your take on, I guess, just the current state of the industry? I know we have this big discussion going on of Marvel not cinema and franchise filmmaking, and it seems like you really do focus on these kind of really creative films. And what is your take on everything right now? What do you think is the state of the film industry? And you think it's good, bad? What are the good and bad going on?
I mean, it feels exciting to me. I feel like thrilled that we get to be making stuff like somehow in the tradition of the stream of all of our heroes. And I love that. I love that stream analogy of you're at a certain point in the stream, and there's like an upstream and there's a downstream, and everything upstream is like we can't not be swimming in that water, and I love it. Like we get to be downstream from all of our favorite things. And maybe we get to be upstream from hopefully from people who come after us who might find inspiration in what we're doing. But in terms of how I pick things or working on things, I feel like the story is like kind of the thing that I just like, that's my North Star. Like, is it I don't care like what genre it is. I don't care how big or how small it is. It's like, is this a story that I'm excited about? Is this a movie that I would want to watch? Is this something that I that has good collaborators, whether I know the people and I know they're good collaborators, or whether I've met them and I feel like I think there's something here. But I do feel like it's a really special thing to get to be involved in. But I also know that I have like a limited amount of, of time and a brain capacity, and I want to be working on things that I'm excited about.
For sure.
Yeah,
you don't want to, I mean, it's such a time-consuming profession, and we're on a project. If you have to really love it to dedicate 1-2 years of your life to it, especially. So I definitely
yeah, and I think when you're working on something that you love, like you can just be in that for a long time, and you can keep coming back to it, and like scoring a movie requires a lot of keep coming back to it. So it's like, it's really nice when you're working on something that you're stoked about.
Absolutely. To kind of wrap things up, if you had to describe your music to someone who's never heard it before, how would you describe your own music, your own style?
Oh man, damn you. I mean, I've maybe I'll tell you what I like. I don't know, like maybe someone would disagree that this is what my music is, but I really like melody, and I like bending in ways that are not necessarily like what you would expect from melody. So I like the contrast between like really melodic stuff and dissonance, and who knows if that's what people get from my stuff, but that's what I love about.
We do.
I mean, that's what I'm excited about. I when I think about the creation process, I'm less into like only dissonance, and I'm less into only melody, and I like personally when I can find something that surprises me, that has maybe a lyricism and a romanticism, but also a uncomfortableness. I don't know. That's what I like.
That's awesome. That's a perfect explanation. So, Nathan, thank you so much for sitting down.
Thanks for
so much fun.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for talking.
Yeah, absolutely, and we'll definitely have to do it again.
For sure. Yeah.
All right.